Before we begin, I want to take a moment to honor the emotional safety of everyone listening. Radiant Resilience often explores real stories of struggle, healing, and the human experience. Because of that, episodes may include sensitive or triggering topics. Specific topics for each episode are listed in the episode description, so please check there to determine if this conversation feels right for you today. This podcast is meant to offer connection, understanding, and shared humanity, but it is not a substitute for professional advice or support. If you find yourself needing help, please reach out to qualified professionals or trusted resources in your life. Your mental and emotional well-being matters deeply here. Thank you for your courage, your openness, and for joining me in this space of compassion and resilience. Welcome back, everyone, to Radiant Resilience. I have with me today Dayna Wylder. She is an energy healing practitioner, author, and guide devoted to helping people reconnect with their bodies and rediscover their innate capacity for healing. After years of living in a state of disconnection shaped by trauma, chronic stress, and nervous system dysregulation, she was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, a moment that became not an ending, but an awakening. Unwilling to accept a life defined solely by symptoms or limitations, she began a deep exploration into the mind-body connection, subtle energy, and ancient healing systems. Through this journey, she discovered the profound wisdom of the five koshas, the layers of the human experience described in, is it yogic? Yoga
Yeah.
philosophy, and began to understand that true healing must occur not just in the physical body, but across the energetic, emotional, mental, and spiritual dimensions of being. Dayna, I love that bio. Thank you so much for being here. How are you today?
I'm good. And you know what? Thank you for having me and for making spaces like this because I think there's so many people in the world right now that need to hear this. So, whether it's because of the rise of chronic illness or just the anxiety and stress of the world and the times in which we live in, there needs to be places where people can connect and can hear stories of hope and inspiration.
Yes, thank you. I had my own struggles in life, and that is what prompted me to do this because I think that so often we struggle, a lot of people struggle in silence and they don't talk about it, and then they feel even more alone. And so it's nice, I think, hearing they're not the only one going through hard stuff in life.
And for me, my diagnosis was almost 20 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And at the time, I was told, okay, just keep benefits. And in 10 years, you're likely be in a wheelchair. So try to have a plan for someone to take care of you. Go home and good luck. And there was the internet 20 years ago, but it wasn't a lot of forums. There wasn't a lot of spaces or really places to go. Definitely not podcasting like this where you're getting
Yeah.
to connect with other people. So I was really left to my own devices. And I think that the world we live in now, at least there is this dialogue about alternatives and this sense of agency where people are starting to take responsibility for their own journeys and their own healing. And people learn best through storytelling. So to have places like this where you get to hear somebody's story, I think that we learn better like that than doctor's diagnosis and a checklist of symptoms.
Yeah, or even just Googling stuff and being and it having the medical jargon behind it and things like that. And I think living in the world with the technology that we have now has a lot more opportunity for you to find a lot of stuff, like you were just saying, but also learning what has worked for other people too is also helpful, I think, by hearing the stories. You said 20 years ago. You look quite
Yeah.
young.
Oh,
How old were
thank you.
you when you were diagnosed?
28.
Oh, wow. And what was it like leading up to that when you didn't know what was going on?
I'm in Canada, so we have a free medical system, which isn't really free because we pay exorbitant taxes, and then we have to pay for private insurance, and then things like that. The modalities I want to do, we still pay for that anyway. But yeah, it's the diagnosis was really difficult back then because I didn't really know when you hear like we're talking about Google about what it looks like, the MS. It's really scary, actually,
Mhm.
what that looks like. And Google really gave me all the worst case scenarios of how things were going to be. And then the doctor's outlook on it wasn't very much better either. But I always knew I was going to do something alternative and that I was going to really seek answers. And I think being like a curious person allowed me to go down a lot of rabbit holes that didn't all end in success. A lot of things didn't work, but never feeling like it was a failure. Just, okay, just drop that one and go with something else. But the MS really, I escaped a lot of my life when I was younger. I had a lot of trauma coming as a child and then into an abusive marriage after growing up with addiction. And I think that with a dysregulated nervous system like that, it was inevitable that something was going to manifest physically in the body because
Mhm.
you're not meant to live in constant fight or flight for your whole.
Right.
And so all the years of escapism in the beginning on purpose through bad, healthy habits like drinking, drugs to try to not be in my body led to me physically having a disconnection between my mind and my body because the MS eventually became something where that connection was severed. And so now I was forced to live. And funny enough, that MS actually looks sometimes like intoxication. Like I remember when
Really?
I first got my first relapse that had vertigo, which it makes you spin in one direction. So for 3 months, it was like having bed spins when you drink too much. And
Oh,
I was pregnant at the time. So I'd be walking down the street in the middle of the day, but I'd be staggering.
oh my
And people would be
gosh.
looking at me, and I could hear people, oh, I was pointing at me. And I'm thinking, no, I'm not drunk, really. Like, I did not get pregnant and then get drunk with this. But you get this feeling where you can't control where your body lands, or you're not like the signals saying, move here, do this. We take that for granted our whole life. But once you have MS, all of a sudden simple things like standing up or picking up a cup become monumental tasks, very difficult. So eventually I have something that mirrored what I was trying to do in my early years, except at this point in my life I didn't want to be like that. And now it's been very much the trying to come back into my body and learning how to make it safe again to be present in my body and in my life.
Yeah. You mentioned the dizziness. What other type of symptoms were you noticing before you got diagnosed?
So I think looking back that I probably started manifesting MS symptoms many years earlier without knowing it. Even maybe as young as being a toddler, I had something
Ooh,
called vagobaglia syncopia, I want to call the name of it.
okay.
It is a disorder where every time I would get scared or anything traumatic would happen, I would hold my breath and pass out. And I would have to be
Oh.
taken to the hospital to be revived again. And they didn't really know, they don't know why that happened. It resolved at some point. But I always had other health challenges, which they said was related to my ears. I ended up with tubes and other things. But knowing later that the first time they said that my vertigo was also my ears, but it wasn't, it was from MS lesions in the brain, it makes me wonder going back. I'm like, were some of those symptoms just misdiagnosed because
Mm.
the doctor usually gives you the easiest low-hanging fruit, the thing that they know most about.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I was pregnant for the second time. And again, trauma has been very related with my MS. So
Mm.
this was right on the heels of my firstborn son having passed away.
Oh my
And so
gosh.
now I'm pregnant again, but I'm still grieving, and we're still in the midst of figuring out what had happened and autopsies, coroners. It's still very stressful. And I start to notice my pants when I walk. And it is such an odd thing to say to somebody when your body's felt like your body your whole life to say, I don't know, when I walk, I feel my clothes moving. And
Yeah.
and it's because you don't notice your body when it feels the way it always feels. You
Yeah.
just disregard it. But all of a sudden, I could feel this change in sensation on different parts of my skin.
Okay.
And so trying to explain that to doctors at the time, and I don't know if it was a mix of the fact that while you're pregnant, they don't really do
Mm.
imaging or diagnostics anyway because it's not safe, or did they just think, oh, you're grieving, and oh, we'll just write a letter and say, just go off of work and stay home, and they just ignored it. And then as soon as I delivered my second son, I instantly lost my eyesight. And it happened 2 times in a row, the second time to complete blackness. And took, honestly, that eye still isn't fully recovered, but it took many years for it to come back to gray shades and then to Easter egg colors and then to seeing a little bit more. But that's when I started to really go, okay, look at all these symptoms coming. And this is when Google actually did diagnose me with MS.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I seen an optometrist and they looked in my eye and said, have you heard of MS? And I was like,
Oh,
yeah,
so
okay,
an optometrist was the first one to suggest it.
because the pale optic nerve is only related to optic neuritis, which is related to MS. So it now becomes pretty clear. But because I'm in Canada, it still took 18 months to get an MRI and to
Mm.
see a doctor. And in that time, you're thinking, what if I have a brain tumor, something that actually could be fatal and
Yeah.
you need to be cured or to deal with now? So the MS, but then now I get all these relapses right away during my first maternity at home with my son because I'm still being abused in this terrible marriage. I'm still grieving, but now I have C-section to recover from. I have a baby to care for. So there's just, it's too much, right? Like life is just giving
Yeah.
me too many things that my body is just saying, we cannot perform at the level you're asking anymore. And it just started screaming back at me. So those first few years was a lot of relapses, one after another. And the relapses so would mostly last a couple months or a couple weeks, and they would resolve almost completely. So for the most part, most of whatever function I had lost would come back again. And then I left my marriage, and I had a nice 10 years where there
Okay.
wasn't very much symptoms. I didn't take meds. Everything was just going fine. And
When
actually, they told me 10 years I was going to be in a wheelchair. And actually, on the 10-year anniversary, I did my first triathlon.
I
So
love that.
yeah. So, that was part of not believing the diagnosis to begin with, knowing I was going to do something else, and then having a little bit of I'll prove you wrong attitude that
Yeah.
I pushed through. But 5 years ago, again, a lot of turmoil in my personal life. I didn't take care of my emotional needs and my energetic balance, and catastrophic relapse where this time it was all symptoms. Like I woke up one morning, I can't walk. And then within 2 weeks, I now can't use my arms from the elbows down, they're numb. Then within 2 weeks, I'm blind in both eyes. And then it's now my trunk, so I can't hold myself up even to sit in a chair. Then it's my bowels, my bladder, my temperature regulation. It's within a month, I need complete care now. Like I need someone to bathe me, to help me get from one spot to another. Now my body just forced, this is it. You're going to listen now. And from that moment, it was an undoing of all of the things I had done up to that point in my life and trying to relearn what it was going to take to actually heal myself because the doctors still weren't providing anything other than a chemo type of drug for lifetime.
Hi, friend, and welcome to this episode of Radiant Resilience. We are always looking for new guests on the podcast. I want to highlight you if you have a story of resilience that inspires others. Everyone has a story, and I believe that sharing yours can help others feel less alone. Are you ready to share your journey and inspire others? I want to hear from you. Every story has the power to impact lives and foster a supportive community. If you have a tale of overcoming adversity, personal growth, or a unique perspective on life's challenges, I would love to have you as a guest on the podcast. To become a guest, please email us directly at radiantresiliencepodcast@gmail.com or click the link in the show notes to become a guest. Join us in spreading hope, strength, and inspiration one story at a time. Be brave and share your story so others feel less alone. I hope to see you soon. That's how they treat MS right now, is like a chemo-like drug.
Yeah, so it's the same, one of the three drugs they used for blood cancer, leukemia, and they repurposed it for MS, and they give that to you as a way to kill your immune cells. And so the idea is if you don't have an immune system, you can't self-attack, so there'll be no more damage to your brain. But in the midst of doing that, you have no immune system anymore, so you could get a brain infection, which kills you. That's one of the
Right.
side effects.
Oh my God.
Also, you can get macular degeneration, which is a different kind of blindness, and you're going to get chronic infections and high cancer risk.
Oh man.
So you're trading, you might be putting out the fire in your house right now, but in place for your plumbing to start leaking, so mold will
Right.
develop later. Like it's you haven't fixed anything, you've just traded an immediate problem for a future one.
Oh man. So what kind of things did you start doing then at that point?
So I started to revisit the things I had done in the beginning. So I always knew right away the first thing I'd ever done when I got diagnosed was to start training with Zen Buddhist monks for
Oh,
meditation. So
okay.
I always knew I was going to, I knew it was a mental for me. Like it was, I
Mhm.
wasn't born sick. It was injured, death by a thousand cuts
Mm.
from toxic food and toxic jobs and toxic relationships and all of these things. I got sick. So I knew there was going to definitely be something emotional with my thought processing and with my nervous system that was going to need healing. But in the early days of doing yoga and meditation, I didn't do it the right way. Like I did it as a thing I checked off a list. Like, I'm going to do this and this is what people who heal do. And so I gave myself another job to do, but I never really embodied those things. I didn't really live them from like the inside out. It was still this external thing I was going to add to my day to try to heal me. So once this major relapse happened, I was like, okay, let's go back and revisit some of those very first gut instinct I had. And plus, I can't do anything other than meditate anyway, because I can't read a book, I can't hold a
Right.
remote to watch TV, I can't sit up even. So I'm like, I'll just lay on the floor and I'll meditate. And I started with just visualization and making mind movies and imagining myself doing yoga and imagining myself kayaking or hiking and just putting myself in this state because your mind doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality.
Mm.
So you can, in essence, train yourself to do things just through your mind. And so I started there. And as I healed a little bit more, I would move my body into yin yoga poses, which is like long held stretching, where you're just pushing your neural edge very gently instead of trying to do like more active yoga, which people think like vinyasa flows, where you're really moving and it's more like of a workout. And once that made a little bit of improvement, then I started to be able to stand for a little longer. So I started to do qigong. And it was like little bit by little bit, I did things, but mostly it was still in the physical body
Mm.
because I hadn't discovered yet energy medicine.
Mm.
So one of the main things with MS and a lot of other diseases actually, which is surprising, it's the biggest reason for people going on disability is fatigue. So it's not even the symptoms, because a lot of us can learn how to overcome our symptoms or
Yeah.
modify our environment for our symptoms. But if you don't have the energy to do anything, and that's where I was, I couldn't even sweep the floor or stand up to cook dinner because within 10 minutes, I needed to sit for 20 minutes to have a break.
Yeah.
And then I started thinking, okay, I got to get the energy right because I can't do any of the physical things until I have energy.
Yeah.
And then discovered pulse magnetic field therapy.
Okay.
And it was like the lights turning back on in my life.
Okay. And what is
And
that for anyone listening who
so,
doesn't know?
yeah, so pulse magnetic field therapy is taking a energy and you pulse it through a coil. And whenever you pulse electricity, it makes a magnetic field because the two are inseparable. So when you make a magnetic field and you're pulsing it at a rate where the frequency is all within the human health range. So it's not like your cell phone or Wi-Fi where it could be damaging because there are these open signals that are way too high frequency. This is all more like with under 100 hertz, kind of in the brain wave states. And you're going to play that into the body now. So as the magnetic field expands and then collapses at this pulse rate, it's almost like thinking, I like to describe it as think about a tree and the leaves. When the wind is blowing, the only way you know that there's wind is because it's rustling the leaves. So
Mhm.
when the magnetic field is in our body, we don't really necessarily feel it, but the cells inside are singing
Mm.
and they're moving. So what it's doing as it's hitting the cells though is it's charging the voltage of each cell. So if the cell is already fully charged, the magnetic field does nothing. The body ignores it and the magnetic field moves through. So you can't overdo it. It's not like a TENS machine or any kind of electrical stimulation where you can actually damage the
Mhm.
cells or put it too high. Magnetic field, you can put any intensity, even like an MRI machine is way more magnetic than the PEMF is, and it still doesn't damage the body.
Okay.
But what it does is it just charges it with negative ions so that at the cellular level, it can function better. So it can bring nutrients in, it can bring toxins out. It
Interesting.
makes it so that each cell has a nice charge so that the cells don't stick to each other anymore, which inflammation causes them to stick.
Mm.
And that's harder for the cells to move through your vascular system. So the PEMF, it's not just like charging the cell, but it makes the cell work better. It makes the blood then move better. When the blood is moving better, then you're oxygenating parts of the body. It's making the like honestly, it seems honestly a miraculous thing because there's nothing it almost doesn't treat
Okay.
because it's treating the cell.
Okay.
So it doesn't
That's
matter if
really
the
cool.
cell you know what? It is so beneficial. There is probably, if you go onto PubMed, more than 25,000 studies on PEMF. Actually, in Europe, they use it like on the soccer fields. They treat people, athletes right away. They don't even do chemotherapy starting it unless they're doing PEMF and ozone therapy first.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's not even something that has to replace Western medicine. It benefits it because if you have enough energy, the biochemistry works better. So even
Mm.
if you were to take a pharmacological drug, the PEMF is going to allow it to enter the cell better and allow your body to process the waste products. So your liver is going to get rid of the bad part of the meds easier. So everything it does is beneficial for the body, and there's no harm to it. You can't overdo it. There's no amount that's like a toxic level.
Huh. That's super interesting. All right. So you discovered that, and then what?
So then I reached the next problem, which is I can use the PEMF, I get energy, I can see better, I can walk better, but it doesn't stay. So within an hour or two, I'm tired again. And at this time, I don't own my own machines. I'm not using it as a practitioner. I'm still just a client. I'm having to get someone to take time off of work and take me back to the clinic, pay again, do another session. And every time I see a little bit of improvements, but say with the PEMF, like I treat people that have a broken bone. I can speed up your healing by maybe reduce it recovery to 4 weeks instead of 8.
Okay.
So you don't have to see me that often. But for MS, it's a chronic. My inflammation keeps persisting. I need to use it every day, forever. I use my machine every day. I go and lay on it. Because I'm going all the time now, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to just buy a machine, have it at home myself. But now I need to figure out why do I keep needing external energy?
Hmm.
Because your body should produce its own energy. So
Yeah.
what is going on that it won't hold and start kicking up its own energy field again? And so this is when I start looking now more at the information field. So what is governing the energy? So I know now the energy governs the biology and the chemistry, but what governs the energy? And
Yeah.
this is the information field. So this is where we're going to start to get into things like what causes the energy to leak in the body. So this could be negative thought loops, rumination. This could be limiting beliefs we got in our childhood. This can be emotions we've never processed and let go of. This can be a corrupted blueprint. So maybe these energetic patterns are stuck in the body. So there's like oscillations in our energy field where now the energy doesn't move. And this is what things like acupuncture, the goal is to try to open the energy flows so there's no stagnation or blocks. But it's not just as like acupuncture is good at just opening the energy flow, but why did your energy flow get stuck to begin with?
Yeah.
And that's where I had to go next. I'm like, okay, so now I started getting into hypnotherapy, neurolinguistic programming, so that you're working not only with your conscious mind through coaching, right? So thinking about how am I thinking about things? What am I thinking about? Right?
Yeah.
What is the quality of my thoughts and then the relationships I have? But also, what's the subconscious part that I'm not aware of? What are my energetic patterns that are keeping me stuck in a place where the MS keeps being a problem? And so once I started to get there, that's where your inner child work and your trauma
Mm.
work and your nervous system regulation, like you get into so many layers that are requiring attention. But what the goal is eventually is that architect, the blueprint of your body, you're trying to get it so balanced and harmonious that the energy has a way to sustain, the flows are open. So all the chemistry in the body and the biology works right. So now your physio routine, now the yoga practice, now the diet, all the things are going to create an environment where healing is not only possible, but it's inevitable because the body wants to heal. It wants to
Yeah.
be in homeostasis. It's because we keep retoxifying it
Mm.
with thoughts, with people, with jobs, with news, with food that we don't allow it to heal.
Yeah. And our bodies are truly amazing. Like the fact that we can even just heal a cut, like that's pretty cool.
It is. And they thought not that long ago that you couldn't heal your brain. And that was part of the
Mm.
limiting belief that wasn't necessarily a personal held one, but the cultural belief that
Yeah.
we all believe that, oh, once that happens, you're screwed. We know now that's not true, that you can heal brain cells. We know now neuroplasticity makes it possible for us to rewire these things. And I would suggest the same thing with trauma too, is a lot of people feel like if things happen to you younger in your life during those 7 years where you're in theta wave and you're being very conditioned and programmed by your parents and by
Mhm.
your society, that those things are inevitably part of you now. But that is also so not true. Like we put so many limiting beliefs on not just our body,
Mhm.
but on what's possible for us. And I think that the same way we were talking in the beginning about you go to Google and you can get all this doom and gloom, it's also possible to go there now and find all of these amazing stories of miraculous, spontaneous recovery.
Mm.
And then you start to go, it's like the 4 minute mile. Once somebody knew it was possible, everybody can do it now. And
Yeah.
so I feel the same thing. That's why these conversations are so important because once you see somebody else that's in this position, you go, if they can do it, then, why can't I do it too?
Yeah. So when did you know that? So now you're talking about healing your brain and doing all the like inner work and everything. So was that kind of the last step to your process? And then at what point did you decide to start helping others?
Oh, for the first part, no, that was not the last stop.
Okay, then maybe we
So,
should keep
uh,
going there
yeah,
first.
no, yeah, no. Once I got up to the emotional things and I'd really figured out what my patterns were and really started to understand what triggered me, what continued in the future to still trigger me, which usually those are the things that you haven't dealt with, which is why the universe keeps giving it to you. So I'm like, what keeps coming back at me? That's what I need to work on. And what is the thing I keep resisting the most too? Because usually what we resist persists. So if there's that one thing I don't want to dig deep in or I don't want to do, which for me was boundaries. I've been terrible in my life at setting boundaries. And, which actually interesting, I know this is a side note now, but when they look at the cells, that each cell has like a light around it. So it's a biophoton. When they look at a coherent cell, it has a beautiful ring of light around it. And that's how the cells are communicating one to the other because our communication is faster than nerves and neurotransmitters and hormones. It's the speed of light. And so our body is a light being. But when they looked at different kinds of cells under the microscope, so whether this was a genetically modified tomato or a conventionally grown one, how did the cells look different? Then they started looking at disease cells in the body. So what does a cancer cell look like compared to a healthy cell? And MS was the only outlying enigma, where MS is the only one where the cells actually have no boundary of holding the light in. The light is constantly pouring out. And you would think
Oh.
at first, oh, is that really good because you have so much energy to expel? But not really, because you shouldn't be using that much energy. That's why
Mm.
you're tired all the time. Your body isn't healing. And that to me was just like such a mirror. I'm like, because it's an energetic boundary problem. And
Mm.
whatever is above, so below the hermetic principles. So what was going on cellularly is also what's going on in my life of boundaries.
Interesting.
But now to answer the question about the journey of healing. So I still got up and I did all my work, but I still wasn't fully aligned yet. And once I started taking off some of those veils though, so I took out the toxic food and the toxic relationships job and the thoughts, and I've really worked on my emotional space. The next natural place to go to now is you make such a quieter space in your mind to listen. That was not possible before
Mm.
because I move slower, I think slower now, I decide to make actions slower. I became so aligned with my purpose, and it actually answers your second question,
Mhm.
which is what am I going to do with all the things I've learned now? And what is my purpose in life? Really, I've always had this desire to educate and to inspire and to speak. It's always when I know that's when my energy is at its highest. And
Yeah.
I knew this is what I want to do. And that didn't come just in some epiphany at the end though. That kind of came in bits. I started treating people with PEMF once I knew how great it was because I was like, why doesn't everybody know this? Everybody should
Yes.
know this. Regardless of what your condition is, I was helping people with sprains and with injuries and with
Mm.
cancer and with heart problems, like all over, and everybody was seeing miraculous results. But then it was the next thing as I discovered another modality, I would train, I would get licensed, and then I'd be like, I'm adding this too, because I knew healing wasn't one dimensional for me, so it wasn't going to be for other people
Sure.
either. So I got to the top though, and once you have this space to listen, your higher self will come in.
Mhm.
And never in my life before, because I wasn't a spiritual person and I didn't even really contemplate these things. I was too busy in action and doing. That once I got there, I understood more about what my purpose really was in life. And I did shift careers entirely. And I really started to pursue the things that I loved as a child I had forgotten because life tells you need benefits and you need stability and you
Yep.
need a consistent paycheck and blah, blah, blah. And then we all trade a little bit of our happiness as we climb a ladder of success, which wasn't really meant for us.
Yeah.
But I think when I got to the top, the one final lesson I learned about healing was to stop actually fighting against my MS. So this whole way along, even running the triathlon, was like a way to prove that I could beat the MS and I could push against it, I could overcome it. And I think once I finally got to the top, I was like, oh, I've had it wrong the whole time, which is why my healing is not complete yet. You're
Mm,
not supposed to fight against your own body. You're not supposed to resist against yourself. And if my MS heals, great. If it doesn't, great.
mm,
Because it is, and if it is my passenger with me forever, then that's okay too, because it was part of my story. It's part of how I got here to this moment of helping other people and finding my purpose. And so it almost feels like it was supposed to happen. And
mm.
it wasn't that the MS had to only be negative. What about all the positive things it gave me?
Yeah.
And there was many that it gave me. And so it's, do I even want to not have it?
Mm,
It's not like I want to attach to the label anymore or be
yeah.
sick, but my MS is like a weather vane now.
Mhm.
Every time I get off path, every time I do too much, every time I say yes when I should have said no, my body speaks to me now.
Mm,
And so I
yeah.
can instantly course correct. And so it's now like a gift to say,
Yeah.
this is what you need to be doing, this is what you don't need to be doing. And I think for some people, and not that I hope people get MS or something so dramatic in their life to have a learning lesson. Maybe I'm just hard-headed and I need something dramatic, but some people live like with low level dissatisfaction and anxiety, and it's never enough to motivate them to change.
Yeah.
So they just stay in a life unexamined, unlived, unfulfilled, and they just stay there. And at least in my life, I got pushed to this point where I had this catalyst where I had to change. Like
Yeah.
my back was against the wall so badly, there was nowhere to go now except up. And now that I've gone to this other place, every time I start to make an error, my body says, no, fix it. And so I'm okay now. And now that you just made that kind of surrender
Mhm.
and you stop fighting, I think that's the final piece that will probably heal.
Yeah. Yeah. Almost every single person I've had on this podcast, when I have asked them, like, I haven't even asked. A lot of the times it just comes up of I wouldn't change anything. Like obviously you want loved ones still here and things like that. There's aspects that you might change in your journey, but overall, the things that we have gone through are what make us who we are now. And yeah, it's I hate that everybody has to go through hard things to get to that point. It seems we grow so much in those times and we learn so much and we're forced to when you finally sit down and listen and pay attention.
Yeah, and I think again, because I love the stories and analogies, I thought about it a lot when I was in my darkest moment and I was actually on the floor crawling. And I was thinking, this is just like a tree. Like you can't bring your branches to the highest heights and up to the sun and in the clouds and in the light and in the beauty unless you grow a root structure that can support it. And when you grow roots, it's uncomfortable. Roots are in darkness, roots are in drought, and you have to break rock and you have to be lonely. And the roots are not the part that is, beautiful, but it's required though. It's transformative. It's what gives you the character and the stability and the depth in order which to do all of these other beautiful things in life. And I've always very much believed that because in yoga, it's about uniting duality. So it's very much about like living on the outsides or what is the radius. And for some people, if you're very near the center and every time something a little bit bad happens to you, if you fall apart instantly and you can't handle that, I believe that life also won't give you on the other side of that as big of successes because how will you hold the container of big success? And big love and big things if you can't hold the weight of the container of the dark times. And so as I grew my capacity to hold myself together, even in these really big, exaggerated dark times, I know now that my strength could also hold me in large success. So I think about people that are like, say, like professional athletes or people that get a lot of fame in their life. You see how some of them fall apart instantly even lotto winners, like you see these
Yeah.
examples of people that they didn't have the ability to hold even a success. It was too much for them. Where some people, I feel like when you've gone through these really painful, dark things, when you found meaning in it and you found purpose and you found some way to still live in grace and with gratitude, even in the dark times, it allows you energetically to move into holding equally big things. And I want that too. I'm okay with life being a big all around.
And stuff's always going to happen to us. It's not like you reach a point where all of a sudden everything's great and wonderful and you've beat everything and you're good to go. Stuff's still going to happen. Life's still going to throw stuff at you. So figuring out how to manage those times at the best to the best of your ability, because you should still go through grief and things like that. And yeah, that's life continues to happen.
You know, what it's taught me is, and I think because a lot of the bigger things that can happen to people in life, losing a child and being diagnosed with a disease and abuse and some of the other things, they're the pretty big ones. And they
Oh.
were all difficult. But I think one of the things that's allowed me to move through life now is I know what I'm made out of. And
Mm,
because those things have happened to me and it didn't kill me, and I persevered and I came out on the other side, when things happen now, I don't want to say life doesn't have meaning because, of course, I'm still passionate and I care about my life still, but I don't get so attached to
mm,
the suffering anymore because I understand the impermanent nature of it. And
yeah.
I'm like, I understand instantly. I'm like, okay, this is another one of these things. Like, we're going to go through it. So go through it. But I know now that I'm going to come out on the other side. So the
Yeah.
holding on to the outcome of it or this fatalistic, because just like the good times don't last, the bad ones don't last either.
Yes. Yes. Even though sometimes they feel like they're just going to continue for forever.
You know what? What continues is our rumination on them. If you were to think about the stillness of the pond, and every time something bad happens to you, it's like a rock is being thrown in the water and it creates a ripple. If the rock gets dropped and it's like I had a car accident on my way home today. And then that was it. And then you just dealt with whatever you needed to. But if you come home and then that's all you talk about, another stone. And
Mm,
then you think, this is it. I'll never get another car again. This sucks. Why is it only me? This only happens to me. And then it's like another rock. And then, the next time, and then you're talking about it still in a week and you're waking up and thinking about it at night and
yeah.
and like every time you come back and you revisit that one thing, whether it's a big thing, a small thing, because it can be small things too, right? One of
Yeah.
the examples about even following our thoughts I always love to give is cooking dinner. So you could think one thought like, okay, what am I going to cook for dinner tonight? And it could be, I'm going to make stew.
Hmm.
And then that could be it. And then later in the day, you make the stew. And then that was it. That's all the energy and that's all the expenditure that went into that. Or you could then later think, oh, you know what? I never defrosted anything. Oh, I got to stop at the store. Oh, when am I going to do that? Oh, now there's traffic on the way. Oh, you know what? That store is more expensive. Oh, why am I doing it? How come my partner didn't do it? Did somebody unload the dishwasher? Am I going to have to? And then you're like thousands of thoughts later, and you still haven't even started cooking the dinner.
Yeah.
And it's how much mental energy did you waste on that? And I feel like that can apply to that little small scenario or to the big things in life too, which is how much mental bandwidth and energy am I going to allow this thing to zap and leak from me when the outcome is still going to just be the same? It happened. I have the wisdom to know with what is. Never mind what if and a million directions. What is this is what's in front of me right now. I know I'm strong enough to deal with it, and I don't need to obsess about it because when the time comes to make a decision, I had that space in my mind and in my life where my intuition and my higher self speaks to me. I have faith that I will make the right decision when I need to, and I don't need to spend time overthinking and arguing with myself all day.
Yeah. You have to trust yourself and
Absolutely.
trust that yeah, I love that. I love everything you just said. So many good things. Oh man. But it's so hard. It is hard to get to that point for sure. Like, I don't want people listening to just think, oh, yeah, that's just easy. Now we can get to that point. But it's so easy, I think, to overthink things in our life. And I think we're so hard on ourselves too. We end up like, oh, what if I bought the wrong ingredients for the stew? Oh, what if I cooked it too long? Oh, what if I like, there's that too. So
You know,
overcoming that is hard.
it is it is easy to change your mindset and your energy. It can happen instantly. But at the same time, the problem is we need consistency because we need to keep
Mm,
showing up to do it again and again is the problem. Like when you shift your energy, like our physical body has a time frame of healing. This is how long it takes for a cut to heal. This is how long it takes if broken an arm. And those things have a set time. The beautiful thing about your mindset and your energy is it can flip instantly. You change the way you're thinking and it's immediate. But the problem is that we keep going back to habitual patterns. So it's more about the pattern interrupt and it's more about showing up consistently. And the same way, if you were to implement a diet or a physical routine at the gym, you would know I have to come and I have to do it 5 days a week or this amount of times for this long to get the result. we don't treat our mind in the same way where are we going to show up consistently and keep coming back to it?
Yeah.
Where if it's a small, it can be small and simple things like practicing gratitude, like shifting the way we frame something in our life, what we decide to look at and pay attention to. But we have so many thoughts and so many interactions within a day that there's a lot of times we could fail or revert back to
Mm.
old patterns. So this is why, like, I think meditation is transformational, and I recommend it every one of my clients, regardless of what they see me for and their goal is, meditate. And meditation that doesn't have to look like another thing people like go sit in lotus pose for 40 minutes. It's not required. Like you can meditate while you do dishes, you can meditate while you're walking, while you're doing any activity, because really the idea of meditation is to just create bigger spaces and pauses in between.
Mm.
And you can do that and you can slow down everything you do. And a lot of it, when we're talking about pattern interrupt, even is even just the small things like, say, your routine at the end of the night. If you have a habitual routine that you do, which includes habitual thoughts that you think too about, oh, I got to set my alarm. I don't want to wake up the next day. Oh, I got this meeting in the morning. Oh, this and that, or whatever things you do to prepare for your next day. Just break that habit at nighttime. So as you're walking, take a slower path into the washroom to brush with the opposite hand your toothbrush. Just do small little things that change the pattern of the actions, the patterns of the thoughts. And honestly, those small little micro changes, they start to add up to bigger things over time. But
Yeah.
they require you to show up and to keep doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What are the five koshas?
Okay, so we reviewed a bit of that in
Okay.
the beginning about the structure of how we move up. So the koshas in yoga, and I came across, like, I am a yoga teacher too.
Okay.
And the first time I heard the koshas about it and I trained, it wasn't nearly as meaningful as when I moved through them in my own experience. And then the next time I came back and read it again, I was like, oh, like this was so simple, but yeah, it was so complicated and so hard for me to figure this all out.
Okay.
It's a beautiful framework, and it's not actually even about healing. The koshas is just about a way of living, but it applies to healing in so many ways. It is like the concentric layers of our being. We think about mostly as we're a physical body, which is very illusionary. We're not really physical matter. And that's the grossest, densest part of the body. Although the interesting thing about the body is there's a bit of a paradox there because if you get the physical body wrong, it can lead to disease and death. So
Mm.
there is something there's a primacy in it in that regard, but it's actually being controlled by the things upstream. So
Okay.
it's not really the place where the true healing happens, but it is where the disease manifests for sure. So as we come in from the physical body, we move one layer inside and we get into our energetic body. And then from the energetic body, and the energetic that we're thinking about meridian, chakra systems, conventional kinds of things we do in traditional Chinese medicine. And that acupuncture would be that kind of thing that opens those up. And then we move internal to there, and it's our wisdom body, or sorry, our mental body next. And the mental body, in this case, it's a lot about the kind of the data that we take in. So it's not really that we've made meaning out of it, but it's just about what kind of information are we bringing into our environment. And then from inside of that, even it gets more refined still into a wisdom body. And the wisdom body is more now about being able to take the information and like really finding truth in it. Because we're bombarded with a lot of information, just like our
Mhm.
thoughts, though it's not all true. So it's like, what is the discernment? Where is our instinct and our intuition to come in and say, out of all of these millions of data points I'm taking in a day, what is really meaningful for me? What
Mm.
is really beneficial? What is actually true? And so at that finer layer of ourselves, we're saying we need to do more than just data collect. We need to make meaning out of our life.
Yeah.
And then even from inside of there, the most subtle part of us, and this is the bliss body.
Mm.
And the bliss body is where we're really connecting to source now. And for people that are religious, this would be your spirit, your soul. For people who are more science bent, this would be like the quantum field, the unified field, where the source, where we all come from. That thing that's beyond space and time, the eternal part of where we originally get source from.
Okay.
And when these things are all lined up and you have the physical body, when think of even your chakra system, the root is like the physical body, and as you move up, you're getting your heart is like your emotions, and then your mind, and then your crown chakra being bliss. when they're all balanced and aligned, the energy can really come down into you. It can bounce back up, and there's no oscillations and there's no leaks in it. And so it's beautiful, and they all kind of harmonize and hum together. But whenever one of them is off, or we've not paid attention to it, or we've got some leakages happening there, it really impairs the whole system. And it because it's a holistic thing. If we have something that's like an unprocessed emotion, that can affect your nervous system, what's going to go into the body. If our soul level is out of alignment, then we aren't taking the right heart-centered actions in the physical world. So it's like all of them are connected, even though we talk about them as separate things. It is hard to separate them because we are not separate. All of those things, there's no way when we say the mind and the body, they are the same thing. They're
Mhm.
speaking to each other, they're working together. You can't really separate them.
Yeah. Thank you for that explanation. That was super interesting. What are all the things that you do now working with others? We've
Yeah,
mentioned a few
so
of them, but it sounds like a lot.
yeah, you know what? My A-type doer ADHD has never really left me. So even though I meditate every day, I still, I at least all my pursuits now are all things like positive egos, right? So instead of the negative egos I had before, at least all the things I try to accomplish in a day now are hopefully for the collective good. But yeah, so when I see people, depending on where people are in their healing journey, a lot of people I see are have very complex chronic conditions. So I do full protocol with somebody, and the protocol includes all the modalities together.
Mhm.
So that's going to usually be hypnosis, neurolinguistic programming, PEMF, and other energy devices. So I also do microcurrents, which is very low level, but very frequency specific. So where PEMF is just giving the body energy, and then the body is going to do whatever it wants with it, right? I can't tell the body with PEMF, let's work on this one thing. It's
Right,
just going
right.
to charge you and
Everywhere.
you run with it. But the microcurrents and the frequency devices, if I do a scan on you, so I use your voice or say your hand to do a bioresonance scan, I read the biofield in your body. And once I get a report and it can show what parts might be out of alignment or not working right, I can program specific frequencies and then play that through microcurrent back into the body. And it's like instructions now. So it's
Okay.
instructing the body on how to get back to balance. So it's not like taking a supplement or even a homeopathic where you're trying to trigger a response in the body.
Hmm.
This is like information medicine. So it can even come not just through the frequency of a device, but also through structured water where frequency is played to the water. And then when you drink the water, it is giving information back to the field to say this is what harmony and the frequency should look like. And but I don't think you can just because I'm not doing just one place. So I'm also doing the physical body. So I do fascia release, yoga, and then sound healing is a huge part of the journey with me too. So I do public sound bath where it's like a group meditation sound bath, but also privately one-on-one with clients where you're really working now on what is showing up in their energetic field and then having like conversation and dialogue between specific frequency and their body. But always keeping in mind that once we clear energetic blocks and we put energy in the body, the mindset has to be right because that's what's going to maintain or ruin any progress somebody
Yeah.
makes. They have to be able to take that forward with them and implement it and maintain it ongoing.
Yeah. Yeah. So that being like therapy and things like that, or
I'm again, I don't like to dismiss other people's modalities. In my mind, there was a point where talk therapy did help me to become aware of some of my patterns. Gave me awareness, but it also, I find if you talk about your problems a lot, you tend to rewire them in the brain where you get a good victim story where you can repeat
ah,
it easier. And also you're strengthening the neural connections of that victim story where I would rather have a comeback story. So for me,
mhm.
I'd rather worry about where are we going instead of where we've been.
Yeah.
And the only real, what you would call it therapy is the hypnotherapy,
Okay.
where you're not really discussing people's problem. You're putting people in, I put them in trance. And once people are in trance, it's like a context free. So I'm not actually talking about the problem because I don't want to implant anything in anybody. When you're in trance, I'm not trying to put any solution or my thinking into somebody. I'm just asking the subconscious in that moment if it can think of a way to resolve its own problem, but without causing the difficulty that's showing up. So
Mm.
it's leaving it up to the person's own imagination to figure out what was causing the block and what are they going to do about it. where you're just talking, you're just bypassing the conscious mind by putting somebody in trance to just get to the deeper layers. But I wouldn't call it necessarily therapy in a conventional way where
Yeah.
people would think about, but definitely the neurolinguistic programming component that really is coaching now. So again, though, because we don't really talk about past, it's all going to be about future pacing and what goals do you have for yourself? How are we going to get there? How are you going to understand when you've succeeded? What kind of thinking patterns and what kind of behaviors are required to get you to the place that you want to go? But it's all going to be about like, yes, this mind movie you're making for
Yeah.
yourself. What is it you want? And then working backwards to create that desired outcome that already exists, really. It's already there for you. You just have to start stepping towards it.
Yeah. And then actually doing the steps is probably
Yeah.
part of your job is the accountability part of it too, right?
It is, especially when people come from a system where we're taught that you just go to the doctor will fix you with the pill and you don't have to change your diet. You don't have to change your lifestyle. If you have diabetes, instead of following a diet, you'll just take insulin. And I know insulin can be life-saving, so I'm not saying to people here, don't take your
Right.
insulin. But what I would suggest is if your diabetes was a result of diet mediated, while you're initially taking the insulin, why don't you start unpacking what got you there? And it could just be food, but why are you eating bad food when you know it's bad for you? That's where you're going to get into the mindset and the limiting beliefs because what is sabotaging you on your journey to wellness? Because
Mhm.
all of us would want to be, we all would say we want to be,
Yeah.
but yet there's a part of us that's working against us.
Yeah. Yeah. And we want easy, I think, too. And this stuff is not easy to work through, like you're saying, to change your diet, to change your mindset, to work through your past traumas and things like that. And we always want the easy pill to pop and make it. Not everybody,
Yeah.
but I think that as a society in general, that seems to be what everybody likes to go for, is the easy fix.
We live a life that comfort wins above everything
Mhm.
else. So people will even trade their freedom for comfort. People would trade because I think that people think that the opposite of freedom is slavery, but freedom is really the opposite of with responsibility. So if you want the
Mhm.
freedom to be healthy and to move around the world, then you need to be responsible for navigating your actions and your behavior and your health.
Yeah. Yeah. So, do you work with people mostly in person then for the modalities that you have, or do you do some virtual?
Yeah, so it's a mix of things. Obviously, my sound bath classes is in person because you need to be
Right.
physically in a location. And then I have a lot of clients that are local to me because that's how I started was people around me. And some people like to do the sessions in person. And definitely things like the pulse magnetic field therapy, you can't do it remotely, so that has to be in person. But also people that need help to purchase machines or they want referrals to people in their area, I can help them with that even if you're not in my area.
Okay.
But a lot of things like the bioresonance scanning and the frequency devices and hypnosis, neurolinguistic programming, all of those things are possible remotely. And I think for a lot of people, they prefer it even. And as much as I love to be in person because I like to feel people's
Yeah.
aura and their energy systems and regulate our nervous systems together, a lot of people I see are unwell. And when you have a nervous system disorder, not only do you might have anxiety about going in public, you might not be able to drive, you might have health challenges. So I try to make everything I do as accessible as possible to meet people wherever they're at. And
Hmm.
that's why my book, I think, is also a good starting place for a lot of people
Okay.
because the book is going to, and it's not a small book, it's 500 pages. So
Oh,
it is
wow.
it's a manual, right, that
Mhm.
follows a lot of the healing journey and it has like practical applications in it as well. Right. There's actual activations and there's a workbook that goes with it. So it's not just something you read, it's you embody it as you go through and you're meant to implement and move the practices forward. But for some people, that's an easy entry point. And
Yeah.
especially for some people don't really understand energy medicine. And some people think that some of these things are a little bit out there, or also think that it's going to be a kind of like an opposite or it's against their doctors or their medical
Mhm.
system that they're part of now. And it is not. It can be an adjunct. It can go together. I actually believe that it makes whatever modality you're doing otherwise work better. So it's not an either or, it can be an and
Yeah,
do
awesome.
both.
And the name of the book is Unlearn Disease, Relearn Wellbeing.
Yes, and that is now on Amazon all around the world.
All right. And we'll put the links to that in the show notes. And you have a YouTube channel too?
I do. Yeah. My YouTube is Energy Over Matter. And under there, there's all kinds of educational stuff. There's meditations and a podcast as well about MS. And then I also do free healing circles every second Wednesday of the month. And that's just a way for people anywhere where you are and at any place you're at in life right now to jump in. And those healing circles, a lot of that is just like spiritual, emotional talks and different kind of techniques and things we can do. We usually meditate and do some sound healing in those as well. But that's also a nice entry point for people to just get their toes wet and figure out what kind of modalities might work for you and what are some of those energy leaks that you might be having and how you can start plugging them.
Amazing. I love all the things that you're doing in this world. And I love that I'm sorry you had to go through hard things, but I love that it all led you to here because I think everything you're doing is really good and we all need it. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely the way the world is now. I think it's 6 in 10 adults have chronic disease and 4 out of 10 kids. And the numbers seem to be going up, not down. So I think that this is a conversation that unfortunately is more and more relevant. Like we started talking about, as these things are more talked about and disseminated out in the wider audience, I think more people are going to start to realize we got to go back to simpler times.
Yeah.
We eat whole foods and we eat our meals with family and
Yeah.
as community, and that we put our feet on the ground and we stand outside in the sun. We
Yeah.
disconnect a little bit, maybe, as much
Yeah.
as we're here, watch this
Yeah.
podcast. But at some point in your day, go outside and be away from the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth
Yes.
and be where the natural frequency of the light and the sun is
Mhm.
on you.
Yeah.
And the best sound healing, which is birds and nature.
Yes.
Like I love sound healing, but there's free accessible sound healing right now. Go in your backyard, the birds will sing to you.
Yes. Especially now in the spring here while we're recording this. It's lovely outside in the mornings. But this has been an amazing conversation, Dana. Thank you so much. You've already given us a million amazing nuggets, I think, throughout this conversation, but do you have any final parting words for my listeners?
Yeah, so I think just have hope because I think that what was missing for me when my diagnosis first came, which was they had no hope for me. It was just, this is the prognosis, this is how things will be. And that is not true. And as we visited earlier in this conversation, we now know that you can grow new brain cells. We do know that things that they said were not possible are possible. And as a human consciousness in the morphic field of human enlightenment, as we all start to move towards these new possibilities and these new places, it's just going to keep opening up and expanding. So never mind even just that the tech might push us forward, as negative as it is in some ways, it will push us forward to find maybe new solutions for some
Yeah.
of these things. But even just the idea of like just what's possible with our own human potential. So
Mm.
never mind what the AI might answer for us with medical devices, but your own innate potential. And not even just for your mindset to keep open and to be curious and to keep pushing forward and not giving up with a dead end. Dead ends are okay. Dead ends are just learning, they're just learning experiences. Fail forward. So every time you meet a wall and it's not working for you, just try again. Just get up and try again, and you're going to find the things that work. And like we also mentioned, it is an evolution though, and it'll keep coming. So you're not going to be done. You're going to continue to evolve and you're going to grow and stay curious. And I believe healing is actually possible for all of us because our body is also beautiful and it wants to heal.
Yes, amazing. Thank you so much. This has been a wonderful conversation, and I'm very grateful for you coming on here and also being vulnerable and sharing all the hard things because I know that's not an easy thing to do always either. So thank you so much. And then will put your website, YouTube, and link to the book in the show notes if anybody wants to reach out and work with you or read your book or anything like that. And
Thank you.
yeah, thank you, Dana, so much. I really appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. If you enjoyed our conversation and found value in the stories shared, please consider following us on your preferred podcast platform. Your ratings and reviews make a huge difference. They help us reach more listeners and continue bringing you engaging, insightful content. We appreciate your support and would love to hear your thoughts and feedback. Until next time, keep listening, growing, and sharing.